fun and learn about Power BI.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the good introduction, Kim. I do appreciate all the kind words you had. I'm going to keep my presentation to about 35 to 45 minutes. We'll leave some room at the end for questions that you may have. As I do with all my presentations, I start off with the no death by PowerPoint promise. I keep my slides to a reasonable number, and there will be a few slides in this deck that I'm going to skip by because this is going to be helpful in the future if you do want to go back and look at the slide deck after the presentation. I have some screenshots of Power BI and so on, which are not necessarily going to give you any increased benefit because I will be showing you Power BI. I'll be walking you through all of those steps. So we'll go through a few slides. We'll go through the actual demonstration process. I'll talk about where and how you can use Power BI. We'll look at some pre-made examples, and we'll create a couple of new examples ourselves. I do like to usually set an expectation for what's going to happen during this webinar. What are you going to take away? So my promise to you is that your takeaway today is you will have some idea of first what Power BI can do. What is this tool? A lot of people may or may not have heard of Power BI, so we'll try to explain what Power BI is. I'll show you what the content pack for Microsoft Dynamics NAV for Power BI will be able to do for you. I'll show you how you can configure the content pack to talk to your Dynamics NAV environment with a little asterisk there because if you have a certain way that Dynamics NAV is deployed in your company, or if you're in a certain version of Microsoft Dynamics NAV, you may not be able to use Power BI right out of the box with the content pack. So I'll talk about how we'll be able to change that or modify that a little bit so you can still benefit from Power BI. And then finally, I'll show you how you can use data sets to create some examples of Power BI dashboard components and reports. So with that, let's go to what's new. If you're looking at NAV 2016 or if you're looking at NAV 2015 to upgrade, or if that's what you're using, a question that normally comes up is what has changed between older versions of NAV and NAV 2016? So in NAV 2016, there were a lot of new features like I think we've got revenue and expense deferral management. There are improvements in finance management. There is better integration between Dynamics CRM and Dynamics NAV. But the one that's got the most attention is Power BI. So Microsoft created a tool called Power BI a few years ago, and it's gone to a few different iterations. If you have used Excel and Power Pivot over the last few years, you're probably familiar with a couple of tools Microsoft started adding there. There are Power Query, Power Map, and so on, which were add-ins into Microsoft Excel. And you would be able to create not just I think tables and some basic charts, but you'd be able to present them in a nice, polished manner. Microsoft took that same idea and made Power BI as a standalone application that you can sign up for. You can create various content, dashboards, reports, and then share them across other people in your organization. Now, it's a good toolbox, but one of the reasons I think a lot of people are not using Power BI along with Dynamics NAV is they didn't quite know where to get started. It's a toolbox and there's nothing prepared. What do I do? What tables do I expose? What can I possibly create? And so to address that, Microsoft started creating these content packs. So what you're going to find is when you go to Power BI and when I walk you through this, there will be a content pack for Microsoft Dynamics NAV. And that's going to give you, right out of the box, certain dashboard components and KPIs that you can start using. And then use those as inspiration for further modifying it and getting closer and closer to what your ideal dashboard is going to look like. Dynamics NAV has had account schedules and financial reporting capability for many years now. However, with Power BI, you're going to be able to get business insights. Your financial, your P&L will tell you what your revenues were, it will tell you what your expenses were, your profitability. What it won't give you is meaningful insights by pivoting all that information in a way that you can make business decisions. And this is where Power BI is going to help. I also like to usually point out that when you talk about business intelligence tools, they can come in all shapes and sizes. This falls under what I would categorize as self-service business intelligence tools, above and beyond what basic financial reports can give you, but this is not going to give you all the bells and whistles that you might get with a $40,000, $60,000 business intelligence solution. So this is not meant to be compared to that. By all means, you'll get a lot more things with those larger offerings, but consider that Power BI is going to give you something you don't have today at no cost or a fraction of the cost of a business intelligence solution. Some things around benefits for customers like yourselves. There's the business performance dashboard that you're going to be able to look at and get immediate insights no matter where you are. If you're in your office, great, you can look at it from your computer. If you're out and about on the road, you've got access to it on your mobile phone or your favorite tablet. So you've got various ways of accessing it. Most of the insights that you're going to get are around finance and sales. That's what you're getting out of the box. You can further supplement that with other information, and over time, Microsoft will likely continue adding to the content pack as well, so you'll get information from other modules. You have the ability to personalize all the information that you're going to see. So the content pack, as it's going to give you, what you're going to see with the base content pack is just a starting suggestion. You'll then be able to personalize it, add more content, change the filters, and so on, until you get to a dashboard and desktop that is going to be representative of your needs. So in talking about that, I've also addressed that last point, which is the modify and extend capability. So some of these slides are going to be more useful when you have when you're looking back at this presentation. We're going to upload a video of this to our YouTube channel as well as to letstalknav.com, which is our tips and tricks blog for Microsoft Dynamics NAV. So if you've been to letstalknav.com, great. If you haven't, when I'm at the end of my presentation, I'll just bring that up on my screen and I'll talk to a couple of things that we're doing around there. We don't use that as a tool for sales. It's really meant to be a tool for the NAV channel so that everybody, whether you're our client, you're a general Dynamics NAV user, a member of the NAV user group, or even another partner, you'll probably all find something that's going to be generally beneficial. So with that, I'm going to leave the PowerPoint and I'm going to go directly to my desktop and I'll start talking about Power BI and showing you functionality. So let's talk about a few things first. How can you use Power BI? There are a couple ways you can do that. The first thing you'll want to do is to create a Power BI account. So if you go to www.powerbi.com, whether or not you are an Office 365 member, you should be able to sign up for it. If your company does use Office 365, you will likely be able to use your same O365 credentials and you'd be able to create an account. When you go to powerbi.com, look under the product section and you'll find there are a few different options here. Power BI Mobile is going to be a link that shows you how you can download the applications from the Windows Store, from the App Store, or from the Google Play Store. So all major mobile platforms are supported. Typically, we're going to do most of our work from the web interface of Power BI. So you can use powerbi.com and you can sign in and get the work done. Another thing that you can do is download Power BI Desktop. Why would you want to do that? Well, let's put it this way. Power BI is a web-driven service, which means for it to be able to get data from your Dynamics NAV installation, your Dynamics NAV server needs to have an internet-facing IP address. So if you've got an installation that is siloed and only available to people from within your network, or perhaps needs a VPN connection, then you will probably not be able to do the things you want to from powerbi.com. Instead, what you would need to do is download the desktop application, install that on your server, and that application is now going to be on your network. You'll have all the benefits of Power BI, but you'd have them locally, and then you can talk to your local installation of Dynamics NAV. In my demonstration today, I'm using an Azure-based deployment of Dynamics NAV 2016. So everything that I have is up and running on the cloud, so Power BI would be able to talk to it just fine. The next thing that you want to consider is the pricing. So when I was introducing or talking about the different types of business intelligence solutions, I mentioned Power BI can be available to you for free or at a fraction of the cost of what you would probably pay for a larger business intelligence solution. And so over here you will see that if you are signing up and intend to have a data capacity or a data warehouse, if you will, of up to 1 gigabyte per user, it's completely free to use. Most of the functionality that you will get from Power BI is available at this free level as well. The only thing that you want to notice is data refreshes are restricted. So in addition to the data set that you can use, that's restricted to 1 gigabyte per user, and data refreshes are only going to happen once a day. If you would like a larger data set per user of up to 10 gigabytes, then you want to get the Power BI Pro. And that's about $9.99 per user per month. Again, not cost prohibitive at all. And you're going to have, in addition to a larger data set, the ability to have hourly refreshes. You can also have live data sources consumed with full interactivity. So with Power BI, if you're using a source for currency information or some other type of live data source, you could certainly have that working with the paid version. And that's something you won't have with the free offering. Now, what you'll also find is there are some collaboration things that are greater in the paid version that you don't get in the free version. Let's talk about signing in and signing up. I'm already signed in, and that's why I'm seeing most of my sign-in screens. When you sign up, you do not have to worry about your specific Hotmail address, or if it's a Microsoft account. You could sign up with your business email. So I signed on with something that's a personal email address, aj.ansari.me. So I'm just going to go here and I'm going to sign in. It might not require me to enter my credentials since I'm already logged in on another window. And immediately when I sign in, I'm greeted by my Dynamics NAV dashboard. All of this is exactly how it rolled out. I did not put in any component up here on my screen, so if you are going to connect this to Dynamics NAV, you can expect something like this right out of the box. Let's talk a little bit about how I got it connected to Dynamics NAV, though. So I sign up, I create a username, it's going to send me a confirmation email, I activate it, and then now I'm logged in. One of the first things you want to do is get it talking to Dynamics NAV, and you can do that by clicking on Get Data. When you work with Power BI and you want to start connecting it to a lot of different systems, Dynamics NAV and perhaps Google Analytics if you're doing that, Microsoft Dynamics CRM if you're using that at your organization, you can do all of that using pre-built content packs. So you go to Services and say Get. And here you're going to see the full library of content packs that Microsoft has already created. As I referenced, Google Analytics is here, Dynamics CRM is here, and then of course your favorite, Microsoft Dynamics NAV. When you click on Microsoft Dynamics NAV, it's going to give you a simple Connect button. Click on that, and you're going to have to type in the OData feed URL. So this brings us to a couple of important points. To get Dynamics NAV to work with Power BI, you will need a version of Dynamics NAV that supports web services and OData web services, more importantly. So in terms of versions, you're talking about NAV 2013 and newer. So while it's new to NAV 2016, and some of the things that we need are pre-built into NAV 2016, you can still configure Power BI to work with 2013, 2013 R2, and 2015. If you have older versions of NAV, I will get to how you can still make that happen indirectly, how you can indirectly connect Dynamics NAV to the Power BI desktop tool. So we'll have that conversation as well. So here you're going to put in your OData feed URL. Now, how do you know what that URL is going to be? Simple. If you're using Dynamics NAV 2016, go to your NAV client, whether you use the web client or whether you use the NAV client, the Windows client rather. It's possible from both. I'm just going to type in web services from my search box. And if you're using NAV 2016, you will already have some of these services pre-built. These queries are going to be pre-built. These are for Power BI. And you will also find a web service. In this case, for some reason, I have a duplicate copy of the same. That's called Power BI Finance. So the URL that you're looking for is going to be what I see over here in the OData URL field. Now, I'm going to be able to copy this, and I would paste that in my Power BI window. The one thing I want to point out is that last part needs to be dropped off. So you're going to keep that standard feed. So you have your HTTPS, your server name, the port that it's going to talk to, the service name, odata and the company name because it's company specific, but you're going to remove that last part that's called /Power BI Finance. Once you do that, you're going to hit next, and it's going to ask you for your credentials. Now, as this happens, I'm going to be able to select from different authentication methods, anonymous, Windows, etc. But here's where I want to point out that Dynamics NAV today only works with the basic authentication method. And once I put that in, I will put in my NAV username and password. So this brings us to our next point. Not every Dynamics NAV installation uses the NAV user password credential method, or login method. Most customers today are using the Windows authentication method in Dynamics NAV. So let's go and find out first, how do you know if your Dynamics NAV is properly set up for that? So for that, I'm going to go into my NAV server on the cloud, and I'm going to bring that up here so you can all look at the same thing. So this is my NAV server in Azure, and I'm going to launch the NAV administration tool, which is basically the MMC snap-in. So I'm going to type in Dynamics NAV administration. And when this comes up on my screen, I've got two services here. And either of these services, when I expand and I look at additional information, I happen to be working on login last time, so I'll click on configuration. Here I can see the credential type. Today, Dynamics NAV Content Pack will only work if you're using NAV username password. Most people are using Windows credential type. What that means is if you're logged into your machine with your domain username and your password, you don't need to authenticate yourself when you fire up Dynamics NAV. You can also add another service. So if you've got that Windows as your default service, we would create another service in Dynamics NAV on the server, and we would set that up to work with NAV user and password, which is a unique username and password combination completely independent of Windows credentials. So that's going to be important that we do that. So today I'm not going to show you how to create a service, although if you need any help, feel free to let us know and we can help you set that extra service. It's just important to point out that you want to do that. Now, what we need to do next is, today there is a little issue with NAV 2016. This does not exist with NAV 2015 and so on, but with NAV 2016 there's been an issue that's being addressed by Microsoft, and I think in a future cumulative update this should be resolved. It is not working with a secure connection. So up here when I typed in my URL, I typed it in as HTTPS, so this was a secure connection to my NAV server. We have found, and we've reported to Microsoft, that it's not working when I use a secure login. So a temporary resolution was, and this is not a perfect resolution, but a temporary resolution was that we create an unsecure service tier. And here we're still using the NAV user password, and we've got it working with a self-signed certificate. So when I say unsecure, we're not saying we're not making this we're not going to have this work with without a security certificate. This is a self-signed certificate that we're using, but we'll be able to do that and have the connection made. So the bottom line is you're going to take whatever URL you have. This is kind of that construct that we have of the server name, the port, the service name here. This is unsecure, odata company, and the company name in the parentheses. We put that, we put in our authentication method, a username and a password. We sign in, and as soon as we do, it's going to start generating all the content. So when we go back to our workspace, it's going to create a data set first. So it'll grab the web services that are in Dynamics NAV, creates the data sets. Those data sets are also automatically compiled into reports. So it's taking all those different tables and queries, etc., that we've exposed from Dynamics NAV, and it's going to combine them into an item sales and profit report, top customer overview report, and each of these report tabs is a combination of multiple reports. So as I look through this screen, if I'm looking for top customers, I can start filtering by top customers for John, and it's going to narrow down my list. I can start further filtering down and say, well, I want to see top customers for John in Europe. So I can also either hover over something and then click down, and then it'll further narrow down my list. So as I start clicking on things, my report components will start updating based on what I have going on. I have reports like item sales by customer, sales opportunities, etc. These reports are further compiled into dashboard components, and this is what we would typically see as soon as we log in to Power BI. So you log in, the data sets create reports, multiple reports are then compiled into and abbreviated into our dashboards. So a number like sales orders open or sales this month, when I click on it, is actually going to take me to a related report. So here I'm seeing the related sales dashboard from my Microsoft Dynamics NAV reports. I look through this here and I see I've got sales amount descriptions, I've got some sales amount by customer posting group and so on. And just like I did on the last slide, I can click on something and it's going to start narrowing down my charts and other components that relate to it. Or I can use some of the filters over here to further narrow down the results. And notice as I click on something, it interactively takes away things that are filtered out. As I go through these reports, if I like what I've done here and I want this to become its own dashboard item, all I do is click on Pin Live Page. So it's going to ask me if I want to create a new dashboard other than the one that's called Microsoft Dynamics NAV, or if I just want to pin it to my existing Dynamics NAV dashboard. And I'll say Pin Live, and that's now been put up there. So when I go back, somewhere down here, there you go, here's that chart that I was looking at. So now this is my dashboard that I just pinned. There's also a nice tool set called Ask the Dashboard, or I think Power Query maybe is another way I've heard this referenced. So you can write a question in a certain syntax that the system can answer. So I could say customer, or maybe sales by customer. We could try that. So sales by, and as you start typing, it's going to suggest possible queries as well. So I'm going to say sales by customer. Notice too, if you were looking closely, apparently I can't spell customer, so I'll just try that again. But as I was searching, it will even let me search by a specific customer name or customer number, etc. if I want. But let's try this one more time. Sales by customer. So there's a little bit of a delay because it's trying to parse my query as I type it. I'm going to make my life a little easier. I'm just going to type it here, sales by customer. I've noticed too occasionally that when I'm presenting on GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, some of my system performance is affected. So we've got this, we'll hit enter, and now I've got my sales by customer pulled up. And again, my results here can also be flagged or pinned to my dashboard screens. Let's also talk about how you can take the data sets and create more content around it. So I've got these data sets that have been exposed from Dynamics NAV. Now, above and beyond the reports that they've created, if I want to create another data report and another dashboard component, I come to my data sets. This exclamation mark is simply showing that it failed the last time I tried to connect to Dynamics NAV and refresh. And this was from this morning. I had a little bit of trouble with my demonstration environment. And since it does once a day refreshes in the free account, it won't try to refresh again until tomorrow. Good news is it does have data from a prior refresh that it can work with. So these are all the different data sets that are currently in the system. These are all being driven from what I have in Web Services and Dynamics NAV as part of the Power BI pack. These are some duplicates. I'm going to use a different instance of NAV just to show you this is much cleaner. So these are some of the things that were pre-generated in NAV 2016. If you are working with NAV 2015, NAV 2013 R2, or NAV 2013, you likely do not have these pre-created. So what we would want to do for you is we can help you create these services. If you would like to take a screenshot right now, you're welcome to, or when you're watching the recording, you can create the web services yourself. So it's just a matter of clicking on New and creating the ones that I have on my screen. That first one is not important since that relates to Jet Express, which you may or may not be using. But you can take the others down. Page 197, make sure you have the right service name. The service name is what's really critical. Page 42, give it the right service name. The object name auto-populates. Query 103, query 102, 101, 105, 104, and 100. You can get all of these The odata URL name is automatically generated, and since this is a query, a SOAP URL does not generate. This is only used for querying. So, and then make sure that it's published. As long as you have these created, and once you've got the content pack configured to work with Dynamics NAV, you will see those right over here. Now, if I want to then add or create my own report, let's say I want to try something really simple. I want to see profitability by salesperson. So we'll just make a simple two-dimensional type of query report. So I'll say salesperson name perhaps. So that brings up Ali, John, and Peter in my demonstration environment. And then I could say show me my profitability in my local currency. So there's my component. Now, in addition to this, if I also want to have another one that's going to show me the same information but perhaps as a chart. So I'd say salesperson name and profitability, but this time we'll change the visualization. So you've got all sorts of visualizations, a pie chart, you've got your tree maps. If something was more map or a geography based, you'd be able to pull up a map. You've got all sorts of things that you can work with. So we could take a pie chart. You can drag and drop that here. Suddenly it doesn't want to move, but there we go. It's a matter of clicking it in exactly the right place. So I can create all sorts of various things. If I want to create a title for my dashboard, I can also create that right over here. And I could call it demonstration dashboard. We can change the font. And we can just rearrange everything so it all looks nice and proper. So we'll put this over here. We'll put this chart over here. So the first thing I will want to do is save, give it a name, and it's going to save it as a report. Demonstration. And now it'll be one more report that I have. So here's something I should point out. You can have multiple reports, but within each report, you can also have multiple tabs, just like you might be accustomed to seeing in Microsoft Excel. So here there are multiple reports that are part of one, multiple tabs containing different reports that are part of one larger report. Or here I just have my one demonstration. If I want to take this data and pin this to my dashboard, here I'm capable of doing it. So I come here and I say pin visual, and now it'll let me pin this visual directly onto a dashboard, or pin this other visual directly onto a dashboard. I'm going to pin it back to my main dashboard that I have here. And just like I was able to do on my demonstration environment, on my reports, etc., I'm able to filter, look at, and rearrange my dashboard if I want to. So what you've seen so far is what you're getting out of the box with the content pack, and what you're getting, what you have the ability to do with the data sets that are already available to you. There are a lot of different types of filters you can set at the page level, at the report level, the visualizations, the colors, etc. And I haven't really gone into a lot of detail here today, but you're welcome to play with this. Let's talk about a couple of considerations for users who are not on NAV 2013 or newer, or users who do not have Dynamics NAV exposed to the cloud. So here I've got the benefit of working in an environment that is on Azure, so I have an external IP address and I can get all of this working. If you are using Dynamics NAV that is not on the cloud, try this. Go to powerbi.com, download the desktop tool that I talked about earlier, install it, and we're going to fire up the desktop tool. I had one copy running. Let me just go ahead and shut that down, and we'll start it so you can see exactly how it opens up. So Power BI Desktop. And when it fires up, the first thing that it usually prompts me to do is to select my data. So it's initializing my model. I'll just wait for a second while it comes up. Now, of course, I'm going to regret the fact that I shut down what was already working to restart it. I think this is where I noticed that Power BI, not Power BI, some of my system performance is lost during webinars. So we'll drag this up on the screen. This comes up and asks me for a get data or work with recent sources, etc. So just like I did on Powerbi.com, I can say get data, and it's then going to bring up a list of all the places that I can connect and get data from. One difference here is you're not going to have access to some of the same things in Power BI, but you will be able to look down and select from a smaller list of data components. So if I were to try NAV here, you're going to find NAV's content pack is not available out of the box. So that's the first thing that you're missing. So that content pack is not pre-generated. That doesn't mean you can't create these queries and expose them over here. The other thing that you're going to want to do is, let me just try that again from all. Yep, they certainly don't have that. The other thing that you can do is take Dynamics NAV data, put that into Excel, and then grab the Excel spreadsheet and work with that in Power BI and the desktop. So this is my Power BI desktop application. I've got this loaded up. Kind of sort of looks like that the Powerbi.com website. Now what I'm going to do over here is I'm also going to fire up Microsoft Excel. And when Microsoft Excel fires up, I'm going to have that talk to some of the web services that I've got going on in the system. So we'll take a look at a blank workbook. Nothing here. It's all clean. I'm going to go to my web services page in Dynamics NAV. Let me close the one that was connected to the cloud. This particular instance, Cronus USA, this happens to be on my local machine. So this is very much a local install. As you can see, there are no .coms, and this is not an external IP address or an external server name. I'm going to take information from, say, the sales order page or the item sales and profit query. We're going to right-click, and we're going to copy this OData URL. We'll go to Microsoft Excel. We'll go to Data, and we'll save from other sources. This allows us to grab data from an OData data feed. I'll be able to paste this information, and by using this, I can actually use my Windows credentials. So I'll say use my same credentials that I have for Dynamics NAV, or my Windows credentials for Dynamics NAV. And here it's going to tell me all the tables that are found within that query. So I'm going to take my item sales and profit. Next, I can give it an ODC connection file name. I'll just, in the interest of time, say yes and yes. I had done one example before this call, so it's showing me that. Now here I can see if I can determine if I want to see this as a table, as a chart, as a report. These are the tools that existed and were really important before we had Powerbi.com, that Power View report. That kind of gave us an output very similar to Power BI. I'm just going to grab my table, and it'll create everything here. And I can then save this with a file name. All this demonstration. I go back to my Power BI desktop, and I say Get Data, Microsoft Excel. Pick my demonstration file. I can pick this particular table and load. So we'll give it just a quick second. Let's grab all the data. And now I have that table item sales. Just like I did in my other example, I can generate a report or a set of reports, maybe vendor name and purchases quantity and purchases in dollars and cents. So I've got this, and I can create some other dashboard components. I'll create one more here, and probably just say vendor name and just the purchases in currency so that I can have a dashboard component. I mean a chart, excuse me. So now we've got a chart. Based on this, I would be able to give it a, save this as a report just like I did on the other side. And I would be able to, let's just call this a custom or Excel nav data. And I'll be able to put this, and just like I did on my other screens, I can map them into reports. The reports can then be mapped into dashboard components on PowerBI.com. One thing I want to point out here is when I create something on my Power BI desktop, if I do still want to make it available on PowerBI.com, I have the ability to do that. So if I have a Power BI account, I can click on Publish. It'll ask me if I want to save these changes. And I'll give it a name. I'll just call this Demonstration Publish. And it's going to then ask me to sign into my Power BI account. Oh, this is trying, I have another Office 365 account, and it's trying to get me to sign in using that. So I have a little bit of a glitch going on. I'm using in private browsing. So I think I'm going to try this really quickly and see if I can work around this issue. But if it doesn't, then we'll keep proceeding. Try to sign in, sign out, and then see if I can. You're likely not going to have this issue because you more than likely do not have multiple Office 365 accounts. In my particular case, it's one of the issues with doing demonstrations and working in live and demonstration environments. So wait for this to happen. I'm going to try to publish once more. I think I may be able to do it now. So as it publishes this, the data is now going to be available on PowerBI.com. So let's go back over here. I previously had Microsoft Dynamics NAV. Now I have Demonstration Publish, the data set. I also have my Demonstration Publish report. All that's left for me to do is pin one or more of these components onto the dashboard. So I can pin this to my existing dashboard as well. So now I have taken something from an offline environment and published this on PowerBI.com so that everybody can access it. The one thing that's missing in Power BI Desktop, if you want to use it independent of PowerBI.com, is you will not have a pre-built dashboard. So on PowerBI.com, when I go back to this website, you'll find that I have a screen called Dashboards, and the dashboards contain multiple reports worth of information. Power BI Desktop only gives me the ability to work with data sets, and I can create reports. I can certainly create a report to resemble or mimic a dashboard, but the dashboard entity itself doesn't exist on the desktop area. That said, it does allow me to work with versions of Dynamics NAV that are probably not, do not have out-of-the-box support for Power BI. A couple of other considerations. I used Microsoft Excel here as a middle layer for getting data. If you want to, you could also draw data directly from Dynamics NAV, especially if you're working with NAV 2013, 2013 R2, or 2015. So instead of having gone the way that I did, I could have gone to get OData directly from Power BI Desktop. If I still have the same URL on, yep, perfect. I still have this. I could have hit OK. Here, it will try to connect and try to grab this information from Dynamics NAV. But what I have noticed, at least with NAV 2016, this is part of the issue I reported earlier with self-signed certificates, I'm unable to authenticate and get this data out. So when I try to say Windows Authentication, it hasn't worked. I've tried with basic authentication and it hasn't worked, and so on. But once this issue gets resolved, and I think perhaps with 2015, 2013 R2 and 2013, you may not have an issue with this. You would be able to use the appropriate type of credentials, connect, and it can grab data directly out of Dynamics NAV. So the bottom line is you've got a couple of different ways of grabbing data from Dynamics NAV, either directly into Power BI or using Excel as a middle layer and then pushing it into Dynamics NAV. And then pushing it into Power BI. If you're using a version before 2009 or earlier that doesn't have OData, you could possibly also create a table using the JET table builder, have a table, save that table, and that table could be used as a source of data to be put into Power BI. So a lot of different ways. Let's kind of start talking a little bit as we start wrapping up. I know we're at 48 minutes past the hour. How you can consume all this information. So far, we have used Powerbi.com. That's an ideal tool for both creating and consuming this information. I can go and I can create data sets, I can create reports, I can then view dashboards. How about the other people in your company who are not actually creating this but are simply going to consume the information you've created? They can download the mobile app on your phone or the tablet app from the Windows Store, Apple Store, etc. When they launch that application, it'll automatically show them all of the reports and dashboards that they have access to. Conspicuously missing in the mobile and the tablet versions is going to be data sets, because that is not these tools are not designed for creating. These are simply designed for consuming. So if I say, show me what are my reports in Dynamics NAV, I'll be able to see all the reports the same way I saw them on Powerbi.com. I can navigate from report to report. I can set filters in much the same way I was able to do on Powerbi.com. Go back to your workspace, and you can look at dashboards. So all the dashboard components, they will automatically load as well. And again, you'd be able to create filters and drill down, etc., and manage all the things that you have. So notice all the custom things that I added today during our presentation, they're all available to the user. They can refresh this data as well, but when they refresh the data, it's just going to refresh it as of the latest and greatest information on the server. They're not really going to be doing refresh from Dynamics NAV. One thing that your users and you can do is each person obviously has a unique account. If you want to share a custom dashboard or a report that you've created, you can do that very easily by going to the share icon. So in the mobile app, I can invite somebody else. The little caveat here is that that somebody else must be in the same organization as you. And that I don't mean a colleague of yours in the same company. They must be part of the same Office 365 organization. So if you've just signed up for Powerbi.com with a personal email address and there is no Office 365 organization at large, if your company doesn't use Office 365, you're probably not going to have a lot of luck sharing the dashboard components. But if your company is using Office 365 and you are using the paid version, at that point it's very easy for you to find other people in your organization with your email Office 365 email address, and you'll be able to share all of this across the board with other people. And they will then be able to see the same thing. So you can do this from the mobile app, the tablet app, as well as on Powerbi.com. When I go here, I'll have a similar share icon. So I can share a dashboard, or I can share multiple things, a specific component, etc., as I desire. So with that, I'm going to start wrapping up, and I'll kind of summarize maybe a little bit of the things that some of the things that we talked about. Why Power BI? it's because we're getting insights above and beyond what your financial reports can get you. It helps you with business decision making. What's it going to cost you? Free or up to $10 a user per month. You do not need to have Office 365, although if you do, there are certain benefits around the sharing, etc. How can you access it? You can grab this on Powerbi.com. You can download a tablet or a phone client on your favorite phone, be it iPhone, iPads, Android tablets and phones, or Windows tablets and phones. All the major platforms are supported. And then what versions of Dynamics NAV will it work for? It's going to work for 2016, 2015, 2013 R2, and 2013. But if you have older versions, you can certainly use Excel as a middleman like I showed you, and you can grab the data. Do I need to have Microsoft Dynamics NAV on a cloud environment for it to work? Not necessarily, but it would be ideal if you did. Even if you have that on your own server, if you have an external facing IP address so that your Dynamics NAV can communicate with the world outside your network, that would be great. You will need an SSL certificate for best and for secure performance. There are a couple of glitches that are currently going on with NAV 2016 and the SSL certificate, but that's going to be addressed very soon. If you are using a complete local installation of Dynamics NAV, or you're using a very old version of Dynamics NAV, then downloading Power BI Desktop is the way to get your data from Dynamics NAV onto Power BI, and then ultimately publishing that to powerbi.com. So I hope this presentation was useful for you. I hope you've learned the things that I promised that you would learn as part of today's discussion. Kim, I'm going to want to open the floor up for any questions that may have come in so far, and we'll start answering them one by one. All right, I think Kim might be on mute.
All right, there we go. Sorry, I thought I was on my phone. All right, AJ. Yes, on the right-hand side, you'll see the area that you can type in questions that you've got. We got some in here that came during the presentation. I think you've covered some of these answers, but let's just go back and make sure everyone understands. The first one is Power BI included with NAV or an extra cost option?
The marketing answer is it's included with NAV, but certainly you realize it's a tool separate of NAV, can be used with products other than NAV, and it's got a freemium offering, it's free for 1 gigabyte data sets, and available as a paid option, dollars per user per month for up to 10 gigabyte data sets.
Awesome way to get started. Here's the next one. If PDI is on the desktop, do the data and refresh charges still apply, and why?
Well, you want to think of it from this way. You'll be able to do refreshes from Power BI Desktop to grab latest and greatest information from Dynamics NAV. But if your Powerbi.com account is a free account, that can only refresh once a day from the data source. Consider that when you're using Power BI Desktop, it's a one-way traffic to publish. I cannot refresh from Powerbi.com and expect to get data coming from Power BI Desktop because it doesn't have an address to talk to the desktop installation. Good example is my laptop. My IP address is an internal IP address, and I share this network with multiple other computers. So Powerbi.com doesn't know how to talk to my computer directly. On the other hand, my computer can talk to Power BI. So I would be able to refresh from Dynamics NAV from Power BI Desktop and then publish it up. So I guess in a way I could constantly keep publishing it, but you would need to do that multiple times a day if you want to do multiple publishes. That's probably the short answer.
Excellent, excellent. Here we have a customer that says, we're in retail with strict restrictions on access. We use VPN. What kind of credentials would you need to log in? Is Windows 10 also required?
So low-hanging fruit first, Windows 10 is not required. I just happen to be using it. So you should be able to work with Windows 8, with 8.1 or Windows 7. Hopefully you're not still on Windows XP. As for the VPN-related part of the question, you are probably going to want to use that Power BI desktop to powerbi.com route if you have a VPN requirement. Another suggestion is consider the fact that an SSL certificate is secure. So a part of the reason people put in a VPN is to secure access to your data. I would suggest possibly creating a new service tier that your users don't necessarily have to know about or use. Have that service tier available on a machine that has an external facing IP address, and use that to make data available to powerbi.com if that is how you want, if you want direct access from powerbi.com to Dynamics NAV. Otherwise, NAV to Power BI desktop, Power BI desktop up to powerbi.com publish.
Excellent information, AJ. Here's another one. On hover, can the numeric format be set, or is it always general, no commas, no 2 digits after the decimal?
Ooh, on hover, I actually don't know. That's a very good question. I do not have an answer. My thought is that it's inheriting whatever regional formats are available in my database. I have not tried to look at powerbi.com account settings to see if I can have overriding regional settings. It's usually a matter of the regional settings of either the system or the user account. But I will definitely look into that, and if we know who's asking this question, Kim, we can send an email out about it.
Yeah, get in touch with AJ. That'd be perfect. That way we can get the conversation started. But yes, how do we, and I'll get that to you, AJ, how do we send charts, queries, tables from your dashboard to another's dashboard? Example is staff accountant develops something for the CEO.
Good question. So here, I think one of the last things I talked about was the sharing. And what I pointed out was if you are using Office 365 as an organization, then you have those share icons, both from the tablet and the mobile app, as well as from powerbi.com. And you can just invite one or more people within the organization to share share a dashboard or other components. If you are just signing yourself up and you've got a non-organizational account, or you've just got a Power BI specific account, you're not going to be able to share that. You're not going to be able to send that to somebody at some other domain.com. At least as I know of it today, that is not possible.
Good. All right. Can you snap boxes into alignment on the dashboard and then move a group together?
I've clearly not been clicking around enough. I actually am not sure about that answer. I'm looking at the time. I think maybe we can respond back to that as well. I've moved a box, I've resized boxes to every which way, shape, and size, adjusted font sizes, but I haven't tried to kind of select a range of boxes and move them all together. We'll get back to you on that as well.
Do the apps require web access? What sort of information is passed back and forth by the apps and our NAV installation, not on the web?
Well, I think if we're talking about the mobile and tablet apps, then yes, they of course need web access because they're drawing information from powerbi.com. The tablet app and the mobile app do not directly talk to Dynamics NAV. So they need access to Power BI servers, and that in turn gets data. Insofar as what information is passed back and forth, I mean, we're passing between Dynamics NAV and Power BI, we're using a credential, a NAV credential. From the mobile app, that user is using their their powerbi.com sign-in. Now, if you are one of the clients who's using Microsoft Azure and have Office 365 and you're using a single sign-on, all of those are the same username and password, so you don't have to remember too many. But if you're not one of those clients, and I think quite a few people aren't there yet, then you would likely have a separate credential for powerbi.com that you use on your mobile device, and the powerbi.com will utilize a NAV username and password. And the only data that's being passed out is the data in those queries that are listed. So you have full visibility. You saw exactly what was going out. So you get to control the data that's being sent back and forth.
Excellent. Here's the last question. The rest will be followed up by our team, just so you know, due to time. This is a good one. We have 100,000 SKUs that generate perhaps 10,000 transactions per year. We're not able to use Excel. Can we use Power BI?
That's
a biggie.
You should be able to. No. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is I'm just thinking about what that means in terms of a data set size, right? So I mean, you're talking 10 million transactions. Did I hear right?
Yes. No, 100,000 SKUs, 10,000 transactions.
Oh, 10,000 transactions? Okay,
Correct.
10,000 transactions is not a problem. I thought on what I'm seeing here, I thought it said 10 million. Yeah, the short answer is you should be able to use Power BI. Consider the fact that Excel is using your computer's computing power, so it could be that your server is not sufficiently powerful enough. PowerBI.com utilizes the Microsoft Azure infrastructure, so obviously more power at its disposal. The flip side to that is more data that you have, the longer it takes to get that data there. So fully expect there to be a little bit of time and a little bit of time to lapse before it can get all that data uploaded, and your refreshes might take a little bit of time as well. But once that data is up there, it should probably be able to parse more data than you're able to do at Excel. You may end up needing, if you do have 10 million transactions, and you may end up needing the $10 per user per month type of account.
Wow. Good job, AJ, answered the questions. So again, we've got some outstanding questions. We'll make sure we get these questions over to AJ so we can take care of you. But we are past the hour. So AJ, any last words of advice before we let everyone go?
Well, not so much advice. I would definitely say if you haven't played with Power BI yet, definitely take a chance, even if you don't want to try with your own data. If for some reason you don't have the right infrastructure in place and you at least want access to a demonstration environment, to a sandbox, shoot me an email. I've got a sandbox, and for a short period of time I can give you access to my sandbox environment, and you'd be able to kind of just click around and play with this firsthand and see what kind of value this could present to your organization. I definitely think if you are not quite ready to go Power BI route, consider some of the tools that are available in Dynamics NAV, and here I'm talking about your Jet Express. That tool set is a good one to consider and look at, and also within Dynamics NAV, consider using analysis views or analysis tools that are right out of the box inside of the NAV application. You can create pivoted reports, you can get sales and inventory analysis as well. That's a larger topic for another day. We did a webinar on it last year, and we could certainly do one on it this year. But yep, know that NAV can give you more than P&L and a balance sheet. There's a lot of stuff you can derive out of the system, and we'll help you get there if you need any help.
How true is that? Thank you so much, AJ. Always great. And again, everybody, we'll make sure that